I was just sort of doom scrolling through YouTube trying to find something to provoke my thinking, and I happened upon a video by a guy named Jake Woodard, and he was addressing dynamics in romantic partnerships between men and women, and he made a lot of good points, and he made a lot of gracious effort to balance the discussion between what it is that men and women do to sort of create this what do you call it when magnets repel each other? This sort of counterforce within the dynamic. And I got some good stuff from what he was saying, but I felt kind of irritated through the process of talking about being in the masculine and the feminine, which was a big subject a little while back. People were really around this issue a lot more, and it never sat right with me, and I couldn't quite nail down why. And what I'm realizing about it is because intuitively, I think this is my best guess is why I have resistance to this. Intuitively, my every drive is to integrate my own masculine and feminine aspects into one really balanced whole. And anything that says you need to push into just one side of that says to me that you're going to let another aspect or a set of aspects really atrophy within you to allow this other. It would be like saying you want your left hand to be really big and for your right hand to shrivel or vice versa. It would be a weird thing to say this is the way to health and success in life, right? And I feel that way about this. I think that we think that the masculine is man and feminine is woman. It's not. It's more about some of the innate forces that are more pronounced in one than the other. We both have the two sides, and within those two sides, we have elements of the opposite sides, and that's how you get the yin yang symbol that shows the two forces that are opposing but in balance and in movement with each other, and how they create a whole. And if we don't have that whole balance within ourselves, latching into somebody else, uh, it would be like taking out part of ourselves to create a slot for somebody who's taken out part of themselves in the opposite way to slot into this one weird chimeric kind of entity that is not complete, even though all of the parts are ultimately represented. Whereas if you have two people who have all those forces balanced within them, and they come together into the same space and they fit those elements they have within them together and complement, then you have two whole individuals who can operate independently, and you have one whole unit that fits and flows correctly. And I think that there is something to be said about the matter of polarity and the masculine and the feminine being in balance in the world as well. But I think this goes into balancing again that we don't slip into the dark aspects of the opposite sex. So, as a woman, for me to take on the worst traits of a man would be problematic. And if you say maybe you need to be more in your feminine around these things, that kind of makes sense to me. I don't need to throw out the baby with the bathwater. There's some truth within this, but ooh, to say like, oh, I just have to be in my feminine all the time, that means I'm going to be imbalanced and incompetent and weak and vulnerable to predation. That's not a favorable thing. I need to be able to be in balance with my feminine and my masculine. And when I go into the world and I, pardon, embody either side of this, it should be the conscious expression of those things, not necessarily the bright, shiny, happy parts. Sometimes we need aggression. Aggression is considered a masculine trait, but if somebody's coming for you, man, woman, or child, you need to be able to channel your aggression. You do. That's the appropriate time. If you're a woman on a date, maybe being aggressive isn't the thing. If you're a man on a date, maybe being aggressive isn't the thing. being in your masculine in that context would be being in your whole masculine, understanding that men are capable of building teams, forming coalitions, right? And they have certain social abilities that are better brought to a date than, say, aggression. So it's knowing which of these forces to utilize at what time, and the more that we have the dark and the light side of these aspects in our conscious awareness. We say, I have aggression. I'm not too feminine to have aggression. There's no such thing. There's no such thing. We all have a drive for survival, and it's going to activate that response if we're healthy. If it does not, we're not healthy and we may not last very long. So we have to understand that we need to be in relationship to the light and the dark side of our masculine and feminine. We need to be able to integrate that and bring it in balance to the world in a way that we can call on all that it offers in the most appropriate and beneficial ways possible based on each situation. There is no magical answer. There is no silver bullet. There's no fairy godmother is going to come and tell you whatever's happening, you do this. There are some rules of thumb. In general, it's good to be kind. It's good to be open to possibility. It's good. There are things that are generally good, but there are times I'll take the other side of the argument and I'll be like, it's not good to be open and you know, put ourselves out there where it's not safe to do so. We need reason and instinct. We need all of these things. We need to be able to change states and be like water, right? And you can't be like water if you're trying to keep the hydrogen over here and the oxygen over there, and it's more oxygen, so just be all oxygen. Now you're not water, you're air, right? This is the thing. And so we've got to recognize that there's some truth and wisdom in the conversation about polarity and masculine and feminine, and maybe in the way of animal desire, initial attraction, the sparky parts. Maybe there's something to that. There does seem to be a natural tendency for us to assume these polar roles within those dynamics, and that's fine. Again, it's using the energy and the aspects in a way that's appropriate and beneficial. I don't have a problem with that, but I think this blanket approach is the problem, and people end up role playing. I'm always in my feminine. I'm a woman. I'm so soft, or I'm a man. I'm such a tough guy. Like it's goofy and dysfunctional at the end of the day, and it's so much healthier for us to have within us all of those things that also, this occurs to me as I say this, if we have and relate to all those parts of us in a conscious way that's healthy and loving, when we encounter that in others, we're going to be more empathic and tuned in and able to really love and embrace what we receive from others in those ways. If we reject that in us, it's going to be a lot harder to embrace others where they show up that way, right? Not if we're in balance, not if we're really healthy. We might find a thing attractive because we're lacking it, but there's not good health and good hope for what you get from that if you're coming from a place of lack. You do want to come from a place of wholeness. That's a message that this, I don't know, this culture, this little enclave of people who follow this philosophy, um, they do talk about how it's important for a woman not to chase a man, but to go and be in her own full energy, in her own life. And I think that is a true statement, but it also applies to men. Women don't want a man who's there like flexing and role playing. She wants a man who's out there like getting into it and really rolling up his sleeves and like engaging with it, moving forward in life, being in his own fullest aspects. And that's something for all of us to say. yeah, we need to be living rich lives with ourselves that put us in balance so that when we connect with others, we don't throw them off balance or get pulled into their imbalance. This is part of the whole, it's balance, but it's not boy girl order balance in some binary and rudimentary sense. It's about playing with the forces, feeding them into the dynamic. It's about riding the waves and understanding there's going to be peaks and valleys in those waves, and the forces are going to move back and forth, and to be able to move with that rather than being in this rigid conceptual identity of masculine or feminine. So I think I'm getting down to it and seeing that I really believe it stifles the healthy flow in a relationship. And I think it fragments us from within. And everything I'm doing these days is about trying to draw all that I am. And it's like bringing all these different people to the table and getting them to work together and to be separating them by like, this is my masculine energy that goes there in the, in the penalty box. And then this is my feminine energy and they run the table. That's not going to get me there. That's, you exile people, they usually come back and it doesn't work out so well in the long run. So you don't want to exile elements of who we are to be more of some piece of us. We want to take all the pieces of us and be more in total than whatever we could be in the most exaggerated expression of one dimension. So yeah, I've gotten down to it finally of like, what is it that really bothers me? And it's this facile notion that like there's a boy thing and there's a girl thing, and if everybody does their part, everybody fits together, and if they complete each other, and they have their love story, and there's a happily ever after. There are no happily ever afters. There are no happily ever afters. That's not one of the outcomes on the menu. There is, we live a really rich and dynamic and fulfilling and engaged life with and through and beyond each other. And we have shared narrative around that, and we have security that allows us to build on what's good there, that we have so much more for ourselves to the extent that there's a surplus and we pour it out into the world around us, and everyone around us can benefit from that. That becomes our legacy. You can move to that. Happily ever after, you're on the wrong bus. Like you want to go to Fantasyland, I think the bus is over there. But you want to get somewhere good for real. There is this possibility if we do actually really work it out with ourselves and find other people who've done the work. Now that's the challenge. That's another matter. But I think that we become aware of and visible to other people at whatever frequency we're resonating on. This is we operate at um, different frequencies, and we tune in on one frequency. We hear one kind of music. We tune in on a different frequency. It's a different radio station. Remember radio stations? Yeah. Um, Yeah, it's a lot about tuning our own energy that we're hearing the music we want to hear. We're able to broadcast what we want to broadcast. And what we broadcast is who we are to the world, right? What we experience is who we are to ourselves. But what we broadcast is who we are to the world. And it's good to be able to know how to tune that dial and send the right signal and be able to dial in on the music you do want to hear in life. And I think that doing this work attunes us to the other people who are doing the work. And as I go through this process, I attract different kinds of people into my life, and I can see almost where I am based on who's drawn to what I'm up to. And it's very informative, and it seems to get a little bit richer and a little more sane each time I go through another small inner evolution. And I'm hoping that as we all learn to honor and integrate our aspects into the whole of who we are and what we can bring to the world around us will meet us where we are and bring us so much more of what we deserve. All right, fingers crossed. That's the best idea I've got to offer. It's what I'm working with, and I'll let you know where it comes out as things develop. But I finally got to the bottom of that question and just wanted to share, ooh, over 15 minutes of thoughts about that. Sorry, got long-winded. There's a lot there, though, and I'm working to stitch it together, and I appreciate you coming along while I try to make this little patchwork idea take shape. All right, well, thanks as always. I look forward to seeing you in the next round. All the best. Bye-bye.